Morning. Good morning, guys. I'm a bit husky this morning, but I wanted to come on today and talk about domestic violence during the lockdown. What you need to know, what you need to understand as someone who may be a friend or a family member to those experiencing domestic violence at this time, and why you should be very careful when you're calling people that are victims of domestic abuse at this time, and what you can say and what you cannot say on your conversations. Usually, some people don't really understand what domestic violence looks like when you're looking from the outside and you're not within what is happening in the relationship. It's very easy to make assumptions, which are very, like I've always shared with you, with are very dangerous, because assumptions are always based on our own understanding of things, not necessarily what the other person is going through. And I've heard a lot of comments on Facebook. I've read a lot of comments about domestic violence and what people think and what people don't think or understand about it. Right now, the rate of domestic violence has doubled from what it used to be before the lockdown. And it's really understanding how you can help the people that are victims get support in this time, so that when you're looking from the outside, hi bro, thanks for joining. When you're looking from the outside, you can really understand what is going through the mind of anyone who may be experiencing domestic violence, as well as the abuser, and you can be in a better position to really help victims, as well as curb the abuser from going further on a rage during the lockdown. Again, it's helping you understand how to navigate the waters if you're a victim, and also if you're a friend or a family member, helping the victim and the abuser navigate. This is a time when there's a complete lockdown and the abuser and the victim have to live in the same space, and abuse is on the rise. It has doubled from what it used to be, according to the domestic violence hotline and website. And as someone who has gone through this, I'm sharing this to help you understand what you need to do to help your friends or your family members, as well as prevent the abuser from going on a further rage. Abusers tend to get aggravated in such a time as this because, again, they're in the same space. You may have been able to call your friend or family member easily when the abuser wasn't in the same space with them, and they may be able to talk to you freely without having to walk on eggshells, or without getting panic attacks, or even getting afraid to have a conversation with you. So when you're giving a call to someone who you believe or think is in an abusive situation, the first thing you must do is not to ask certain questions. Questions like, are you all right? Questions like, can you talk? Or you get on the phone and begin to have a lengthy conversation. No, because when you're having the lengthy conversation, the abuser is getting really aggravated or agitated, and maybe listening to your conversation, or maybe reading the body language of the victim, and you have no idea what is going on the other end. And so you're listening, you're having your conversations, and you're freely talking, and you're not sensing anything. But the victim may not be able to tell you to even get off the phone, or even give you signals that you can easily get to that can be a flag to you to really observe that someone is going through an abusive situation. So here are some things that you can do when you're calling someone that you may already know is experiencing abuse. When you call to check on them, the first thing I want you to do is ask for the abuser, because the abuser may be lurking. Don't send text messages. Let me start with the phone call. When you make a phone call to someone you think that is experiencing abuse, don't start by asking, how are you? Start by saying, hey, I'm checking on you, and then ask for the abuser. The reason I'm saying ask for the abuser is because you don't know, maybe they've already had a fight before your phone call came through. And the abuser is now sitting and waiting for the next phone call so that the victim, him or her, abuse is broad spectrum. It's not limited to women only. Him or her may get on the next phone call and start talking. So when you make a call to someone that you think is experiencing abuse or someone that you know that is a victim of abuse, ask for the abuser. Again, you're asking for the abuser to kind of set the pace to get yourself to know what is going on the other end. We're all on lockdown, so you can't really get there to see. Say hello to whoever picks up the phone, him or her, the victim, and then ask for the abuser. The reason why you're asking for the abuser is to say hello to the abuser and to be able to see how the abuser will react to you on your phone conversations. Because on the other end, the victim may have just experienced abuse before your call came through. So when you talk to the abuser, you're just checking on them. How are things going? How are you coping with this? Don't even mention your friend or your family member, because when you do, they may think that you've already had a conversation before calling. So when you're making the phone call and you're saying, hey, let me talk to your partner, you're talking to the abuser to see where the head of the abuser is in that moment without giving too much idea into the abuser's head to think that you're calling because your friend has or your family member has already reached out to you. So when you call and you say hello to your friend, just say, hey, I need to say hello to your spouse. And when you hand over the phone, just say, hey, how are you guys coping with this season? You know, how are things going? And then just as you say hello, you can get the reaction of the abuser to see what is going on in the abuser's mind or head. And then you can talk back to your friend. When the phone is handed back to the victim, all you can do is say things like this. I am going to read out several words to you and pick one of the words as a code so I know you're okay. Things like, I'm thirsty. Things like, it's sunny outside. Things like, oh, the weather's nice. That way, you can really give the victim some way to form a code that you both understand in such a situation when you're checking on the victim. Because, again, you are on the other end away from them. And you don't want to cause a situation where things aggravate and the victim is victimized again. The second thing is not to send a text message. Text messages, you don't know if the abuser has the phone or the victim has the phone. You're not in their environment. So you don't know what's going through the mind of the victim or the mind of the abuser. So when you're sending a text message and the victim cannot respond, or the abuser has the phone, the victim may suffer further consequences. If it happens that the abuser has the phone or can read your text messages while your text messages come in. Imagine the victim is having a shower when you're sending the text message, and the abuser is in the bedroom looking at the phone and reading all the text messages and saying, oh, now you're reporting me to people. What do you think would happen to the victim? Battered once again. We have to be very mindful in these times when we're communicating with people that we know that are going through abusive situationships, especially if they're dealing with malignant narcissists as well. Narcissism is also on the rise, and the poor victims are the ones who will suffer most in this time, as well as the children. The children may not be able to communicate with you as well. If you're making a video call, this is the third thing. If you're making a video call, just when you call, say hi to everybody in the environment. Not directly to the victim, because remember, video calls, you're on a speaker. Everybody can hear you. Just say, hey, how's everybody? Can I see everybody's face? Then you can tell what's going on in the home at that time. And you looking from the outside can read the body language and signals that can help you escalate a 911 call to save the victim. There are people who are dying at this moment due to domestic violence and the lockdown. And you have to be very, very careful when you're trying to help in situations. Number 4 is not to judge, because you may be looking from the outside, but you're not in the victim's shoes. I've had people say to me when I was going through, oh, you knew all about that before you even got into the relationship. But they did not know that I did not even see any signals. Have you ever been in a relationship with someone who is narcissistic? And do you see how they have a different mask on when they're outside in the public than when they're inside in the home? You don't know. So when you're talking to them, when you're talking to victims, don't pass judgment. Number 4, never pass judgment. All you can do is listen without even making comments, because the victim is overwhelmed and just wants to pour out what's going on in them when you get to talk to them. Sometimes they may even be afraid to have conversations with you. And what you will do is read the number 5 is to read the body language. When they're having a conversation with you on a video call and you're reading body language, you can tell if they're not communicating what is going on with you. And the way you will know is if they're on a video call with you and they're constantly looking over their shoulders, or they're constantly scratching their face. I'm giving you the body languages you can look for. Constantly scratching their face, or holding their throat and looking around, or hesitating to answer your questions. Again, these are things that we can do to help victims that can't go out. You may be the only saving grace to call 911 on the other end. But if you go in and start to have conversations that keep them on the phone, the abuser may be waiting for them to get off the phone to batter them again. There are so many things that you don't understand if you haven't experienced abuse. And there are also so many therapists and coaches that haven't experienced abuse that cannot help you as an abuser, because it takes having that experience to be able to support other people going through it. And it takes you as a friend or a family member not to judge, because judgment comes from a place of pain that you may be experiencing and you may not understand, because everybody's story is different. So to recap, the first thing, if you call, always ask to have a conversation with the abuser so that you can see if the abuser would have a negative reaction to you on the phone. And then when you get back on the phone with your friend or your family member, easily give codes that can help them communicate back to you without leaving a trace where the abuser knows they're communicating to you. Signals. Number 2, don't send text messages. Always try to have a phone conversation or a video call before you send text messages, because the text message may end up in the hands of the abuser. Another thing you can do is, if they have children, try and see how the children are when you're having a video call or a phone conversation. Say hello to the children and see how they respond. If they're responding back to you in fear, then you know that there's danger looping somewhere. It's very easy for us to get carried away in our own worlds without understanding what the victims or the abuser is experiencing, and how we can help them navigate the waters to calm the waters while they're being on lockdown. If you're a friend to an abuser, you may not even know your friend is abusive. When I was dating, I had dated a malignant narcissist that all the friends did not even believe the person was a malignant narcissist. I was constantly going to lunches and dinners and having my neck gagged sometimes. And I'm asking, why are you gagging my neck? And these are things that victims will be going through at this time as well. And you have to just understand that what you need to do is to listen more to them and judge less. Let me say that again. Listen more and judge less. Because right now they need every support they can get. Their children need every support they can get. The abuser also needs support. Because the abuser is in an unhealthy state of mind or may have experienced some trauma that they need to overcome. And it's looking for ways to calm the abuser so that the abuser doesn't go on a rage and inflicts pain on the victim and the children. So you have to know how to, I've shared these tips with you because if you have a friend or a family member that you think is experiencing abuse, these are some ways you can help them navigate during this time to really calm the waters so that when you get off the phone, they're not in a bad situation or even worse a situation than before you got off on the phone with them. You need to help the abuser as well, not just the victims. Abusers also need help to uncover what they're experiencing so that they can unleash whatever it is that they've bottled up on the inside that is allowing them to abuse other people and become even more toxic to themselves. Another thing is to learn how to communicate. Communication is key in this situation. You can't just start to nag or say, I told you so. You have to have a right tone and the right words to use to communicate. That's all this video is about. Your mode of communication. Never assume. Assumptions are dangerous. I've always shared that with you. Assumptions always come from where you are with yourself, not where the victim or the abuser are with themselves. And so you don't make assumptions. You just step in to be a help. If you can get them to a coach or a therapist or a counselor or even the law enforcement. Or if you will be the conduit to go on a chat on the domestic violence websites, all have chat rooms now. You may be the conduit that can go on a chat and give up that information so that the victim can get help to get out. I shared earlier this week all the numbers that I know of domestic violence hotlines in the U.S. If I get more for other countries, I will continue to share. Again, this is a time not just to help the victims, but to also calm the abuser so the abuser doesn't go on a rage. If there are questions, I'll be more than happy to answer your questions because at this time we need to be supportive of people experiencing domestic violence, whether the victim or the abuser. Everybody is on lockdown and you want to make sure that the abuser is in a calm state of mind than going on a rampage and inflicting more pain on the victim. If you have questions, I'll be more than happy to answer your questions at this time. Again, it's about helping those that are going through now navigate the waters so that when they're in the lockdown in the same house with the abuser as victims, they can protect themselves. And you can also help the abuser calm the nerves so that they don't go on a rampage at this time. It's all about helping others. That's all we can do in this time. Help other people. Check on them frequently, but don't let your phone calls be about you when you also call. We're sometimes carried away with ourselves when we call other people and we talk about ourselves more than listen to what they're going through. I've been on a phone conversation this week where 2 hours I just listened. And so be the listener than the judge. Be the listener than the judge. Since there are no questions, I don't see any questions coming in. I'll be signing off. Again, I will continue to share from a space of my experience coaching others and supporting others during this lockdown. to navigate the waters and get to where they need to get to. I have typed my email down. If you're experiencing domestic violence, or if you know someone experiencing it and you need to get them help, feel free to inbox me or email me at coaching@kemishogule.com. You can also visit my website, www.kemishogule.com, to get support. I will always respond back to you within 24 hours because I don't want anybody dying on our watch. We are supposed to be our brothers and our sisters' keepers. Because we're not going through doesn't mean that we shouldn't support those going through at this time. We have to show empathy. We have to show love, and we have to show kindness. That's all people need in this time and season we're in. Again, feel free to inbox me, email me, coaching@kemishogule.com. Get your friends or your loved ones that you may know experiencing, reach out on their behalf. Go on the domestic violence website and go on the chat on their behalf to help them get out of the environment right before they lose their lives. Let's save lives where we're under the lockdown. The virus is already killing enough people. We don't need domestic violence to take more people out of the world before their time. We can be the conduit to help them get out if they need to and when they need to. I hope you all have a great weekend. Never stop loving while living. When you stop loving, you stop living. And part of loving is to be able to see other people as you see yourself, and to be able to support other people as you want to get the support and get treated, so that the world can become a better place that we're living in. You all have an amazing one. Take good care. God bless. Bye-bye.